Welcome back to the Get Off the Treadmill podcast for small business owners and entrepreneurs, where we show you how to build a successful business and to have a life too. We're going to dive into another topic that helps us make more money in less time and to get off the treadmill so we can experience a life of significance. And now, your host and the author of the #1 best-selling business book, Making Money is Killing Your Business, Chuck Blakeman.
Today, we're going to talk about how to fill up your appointment calendar, and this is going to be a counter-logical approach. First, I want to just very quickly brief again on the walking in commitments and the 4 buying questions, which are part of this idea of having an appointment with a potential customer. These are from a couple other podcasts we just did, so go back and look at those if you haven't. I think it'll be well worth your while. The 4 walking in commitments are something you commit to as you walk in before every meeting with a potential customer. Number 1, I intend to serve them, seek their long-term best and highest interests. Number 2, I will not talk about my business unless asked. I dare you to do that. You'll make more money. Number 3, I intend to make money from this meeting, not in this meeting. And number 4, I intend to make an offer. So those are the 4 walking in commitments. And then we have 4 buying questions once you get into the meeting. We're going to talk a little bit about how to get into those meetings today. But once you're in the meeting, there's 4 questions that show that you actually have an interest in them as a human being, not just as a target or as a walking checkbook. Something about their past or their past business. How did you get into business? What's the favorite house you ever lived in? Something about the future. Where is this business taking you? What's your dream house look like? Something in the present. What's the one thing standing in your way to get to those dreams? And number 4, who's your favorite customer? What's your customer profile so you can help them? And as we said in the other videos, you may not get to question number 4, but I would strongly encourage you to memorize these 4 walking in commitments and these 4 buying principles because they have changed people's businesses. All right, let's get into appointments. Where does sales break down? What's the big bottleneck in sales? People say, well, maybe it's in creating the message. I don't have the right message. I don't have the right website colors and messaging and branding and market positioning and all that good stuff. Some people say it's in the buying conversation. You got to be able to read people's body language and to say the right things and get a really slick presentation. And some people say it's in the close. You've got to learn how to get people to a yes and learn how to do that emphatically and learn how to do it with confidence. I think all 3 of those things are important. And I don't think sales breaks down in any one of those. Where does the sales process break down most often? It breaks down because we don't have anybody to talk to. If you're the best salesperson in the world with the best marketing and branding, and you know how to have great conversations and you don't have anybody to talk to, you're going to starve to death. If you have plenty of people, what we call a steady stream of potential clients to talk to, you don't have to be that good at anything, and you're going to do just fine. And by the way, you will learn how to be good because you have opportunities to learn. So we want to figure this out. How do we create a steady stream of potential clients? The answer is to get more appointments with the same or less effort than you have in the past. There are a number of ways to do that, a number of paths we talk about in our podcast. This is one of them, just being more effective about scheduling an actual appointment. As we get into this idea of scheduling appointments, I want to talk about how you are currently selling, how you are currently attracting people. Are you doing networking, cold calling, buying lists for email or direct mail, advertising, social media, referrals? What are you doing? They all fall into 4 buckets and quadrants. And when we talk about how to set an appointment, it's going to be in quadrant number 4 for the most part. Quadrant number 1 is advertising. This is where you spend a lot of money and not as much time, and you sit back and you wait for the phone to ring. Unfortunately, most of us as small business owners don't have that kind of money. We really don't have a lot of time either, but we got more time than we do money. So advertising and playing against the big dogs where we have to spend, I think a small retail business or even an insurance agency, unless you have 100,000 plus as a minimum to spend annually on advertising, you're wasting your money because you just need so much recency and frequency that it just won't be worth it. Second quadrant is direct marketing. That's where you spend medium to high dollars, but it's more targeted. You're not just blasting it out there for everyone and hoping you hit a customer. You're going after potential customers. That takes a little less money and a little more time and is a little more effective for us. The third quadrant is public relations. We challenged a guy once who wanted to create a rugby website to kick a rugby ball across America and sign up hotels and sign up sponsors and t-shirt. And, he could look like a NASCAR driver. And we figured he could make $150,000 or $200,000 kicking a rugby ball across America and have an amazing amount of coverage in every town he went through. That takes a lot of time and a little bit of money, but you can actually make money at it. There's other ways to do public relations that can be a one-off thing that it costs you nothing and you make a lot out of it. So that's closer to where we want to be, but it's not a place for setting appointments. The last quadrant is relationships or relationship marketing. That's the lowest cost money-wise and the highest cost time-wise. And again, we don't have a lot of either, but unfortunately, we got more time than money. And that's okay, because there's a principle that kicks in here. We've talked in the past about the unfair advantage that small business owners have. This is one of them. It's called the proximity principle. At least that's what I call it. I don't know what anybody else calls it. And for me, the proximity principle is this: the closer you get to a hug, the more likely you are to sell something, and the more likely you are to get an appointment. The proximity principle is basically the hug principle. The closer you get to a hug, the more likely you are to sell something. Relationships matter. If you're doing advertising, you're a long way from a hug, and it's going to take a long time to develop that relationship. Direct mail is a little closer, but still very far away. Direct marketing, people can see you and be with you, and there's ways to do that, but there's nothing that beats relationship marketing, where you actually are sitting down with someone either on the internet or in person. There's just no better way to get an appointment. And, by the way, I didn't make this up. Nothing I do is new. It just may be presented differently. In 1993, Bob Berg, who was a sales guru, said this: people buy from people, and they buy more from people they know, like, and trust. That's the hug principle. So how do we set an appointment? I would suggest to you the first thing you have to think about in setting an appointment is something you probably don't think about when setting an appointment. That is, be a leader. In order for people to have confidence buying from us, we need to lead them in our area of expertise. They shouldn't be saying to us, hey, could you do that? Would you do that? How about this? Those are all things we should be doing with them. And it starts with how we make an appointment. What kind of impression are we making when we make an appointment? I heard everything and I've done everything. Hey, Jenna, it'd be great to get together sometime. Jenna says, yeah, it'd be great. 2 weeks later, we see each other. We got to make that appointment. Yeah, let's do something next month. Next month comes around. Why don't we do something? Yeah, why don't your people call my people? And it just keeps going. And it's not leadership. We can show great leadership right out of the gate and differentiate ourselves from everybody else that wants somebody's business simply by how we lead them with ease through the appointment process. So number one principle here is lead. Take charge. Be the one who makes this happen in a kind, graceful way. Here's the mechanics that we've learned over the years. You can do something different, but I would encourage you to at least try these and then modify it on the second or third go around. You'll get more out of it. So here's the process. I would suggest that you always make appointments for no closer in than 2 weeks out, and generally no farther out than 3 weeks out. Why? Well, as we said in many podcasts, and it's the whole tenor of this podcast, most business owners are living by the tyranny of the urgent, which means they are reacting to the world coming at them and trying to knock the world down as it comes at them every day. Very busy knocking down all the things coming at them, feeling like they got a lot done when in fact they just knocked down things coming at them. They're not being proactive, they're reacting. That's how people live. And unfortunately, that fills up next week. But because they live by the tyranny of the urgent, 2 weeks out isn't going to be nearly as full. 3 weeks out is going to be pretty much barren. And 4 weeks out is so far out that the tyranny of the urgent just doesn't matter to them. It's like, that's 4 weeks out. I don't have to worry about that. I'm not going to read and respond to your email because it's just too far out. And anything that you conflict with that's 4 more weeks out, for the most part, is going to be on there 6 months earlier. Weddings, anniversaries, all that stuff. So 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out. Our experience has been that you do that. And I would suggest that you give them actually a date both in the second week and in the third week. We're going to give them 2 options. That's another principle in this. Don't give somebody one option because it really narrows things down. We're going to give them 2 different options with a lot of variables that allow them to possibly be able to connect with at least one of those 2 options. So 2 weeks out and 3 weeks out. And then in the second week, pick a different day of the week than the third week. So the second week out might be Tuesday, March 7th, and the third week out might be Wednesday, March 15th. So now you've got 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and make the first appointment a morning appointment and the second one an afternoon appointment. So would you like to meet March 7th at 10 a.m. or March 15th at 1 p.m.? You've given them 2 different weeks as an option, 2 different days of the week, and mornings and afternoons. The reason I encourage you to try this is pretty intuitive when you think about it. Some people are always busy in the afternoon. Some people are busy already 2 weeks from now. They're not living by the tyranny of the urgent. So you give it to them 3 weeks out. Or 3 weeks out, there's some long-term engagement that gets in the way of that one, and they can do it 2 weeks out. Some people are always busy on Tuesdays, but they're never busy on Thursdays. Some are busy the opposite. And then some people are always busy in the mornings, or they never take appointments in the mornings. They always take them in the afternoon, and other people are the opposite. So if you give them 2 weeks, 2 different days of the week, and morning and afternoon, you've given them a huge number of variables to respond to that can make it much more likely that they will respond and say yes. And then once you have that out there, I generally found that giving someone those 2 options and doing it with 2 different mediums actually worked pretty well. You could text them and then give them a call. Likelihood is they're not going to answer it, but they will listen to the voicemail. And you can say, hey, I just left you a text. You don't need to do anything but respond yes or no to one of those 2 times, or you can suggest a third one if it works better for you. Look forward to hearing from you. It's reinforcing, it's polite, and it's a great way to have multiple touches with someone without really getting in their way. You can also say in the text, hey, I'm leaving you a voicemail on this. Respond either way you want. Generally, people are going to go for the text. Or you can do it the old-fashioned way. If you know that your customer is more likely to respond to an email, then I'd go with an email and a phone call, or maybe an email and a text. But I really like the hug principle coming out in the voice. So text and email, and then phone to remind them of that. And then wait. How long? This is intuitive. You know the person, you know the situation. It could be hours. It could be a day or 2. I wouldn't wait any longer than a couple of days. And then I would do the whole thing all over again with something like this. And I don't want to bother you. So as you're asking them to meet March 17th at 10 a.m. or March 15th at 1 p.m., you could repeat that. Hey, I called you the other day and I don't want to bother you, but I know you're busy. If you're like me, I know you're busy and this stuff gets away from you. So I don't want to bug you. I'm not going to bother you. But here's this reminder. Text them that, phone it to them and say, just look at the text and respond. And then you do that as many times as you think would be in their best interest, which usually isn't very many. However, I did this once with a guy for, I would say, at least 10 or 12 iterations over a 6-week period. And it was because intuitively, I really believed that what we had met a need he really had. He had come highly recommended. The person that recommended him said, man, don't let this guy get away because he really needs you guys. Sometimes you get enough intuition, enough information that you just become the bulldog. And I still remember the email I got back. It was literally, hey, you SOB. It was kind of like that. You're the most persistent guy I've ever met in my life. Let's get coffee. And he basically said, it was kind of like saying, let's get coffee so we can get this over with. And we got coffee and he became a client for a very long period of time. And we really helped him in his business. Sometimes that's stalking. I can't define that for you, but you have to look inside and say, what does this feel like as I write this email and this text? Does this feel like I should be doing this? And in the case of that guy, it felt like, I don't want to do this. It feels uncomfortable, but I really feel like I should. And it turns out I should. And we became great friends as well. So there's an intuition to how many times you would repeat this formula of 2 weeks, 2 different days, and morning and afternoon. But I would suggest that you listen to yourself and listen to the people around you. And if you can't get an idea from yourself, ask people you know who know you or know the other person or referred you. Get some outside eyes. I will say this, too often we quit too soon. Why do we do that? Because we're having what I call conversations in the mirror. Got that from somebody else. I just love it. I'm looking at a mirror and I'm saying, pretending the person in the mirror is the other person. Well, if I say this, then they're going to say that, then I'm going to say this, and they're going to say that. And I know exactly where this is going. They're never going to want to buy anything. All I did was have a conversation in the mirror. I never let them be a part of it. And we almost always come up with a reason that has to do with how much we're bugging them or how we're annoying or something that makes us an inconvenience. I'll turn it around and say there was an insurance guy who came after me for a year, like once every other week. I got to where I put his name in my phone so I could see that he was calling, so I wouldn't answer. Then he got another phone number, and I put that one in the phone. And he was bugging me in a sense, but not really, because I was saying, I think I might have responded to the first text saying, you know, I'm really busy, and this is a low priority, but I do want to check out my insurance and see if it's right. A year later, I finally said basically the same thing. You're the most persistent SOB I've ever seen. Here's my insurance info. Let me know. He became my insurance agent. And I wasn't unhappy with him bugging me. And he gave me options. He would have stopped if I'd have said, hey, look, it's not right. I don't want to do it. But he didn't. But too often we say instead of saying the other person's really busy, we say they don't want to hear from us. I would change that story in your head and let them own their own stories. They can decide. Don't decide for them that they're being passive aggressive. Let them decide whether they want to respond or not, and let them be big boys and girls, and then be sensitive to the idea of becoming a stalker. So there's some intuition in this, and I think you could all trust yourselves to get it. So to recap, give people two choices of 2 different weeks, the second or the third week out, never the first. The fourth's too far out. Secondly, a choice of 2 different days of the week, Tuesday and Wednesday. And third, a morning for one of them and an afternoon for the other. So the request would sound something like this. Hey, Ruby, are you available Tuesday, June 3rd at 10:30 p.m. or would you be available June 18th at 1 p.m.? Would that work better for you? And if neither of those work, I'm available Tuesdays and Thursdays afternoons most of the time after 2 p.m. Let me know what works for you. Remember what I did there. I led them, I gave them an example of how to do this. And then I said, if it doesn't work for you, respond. Now that you showed them how you do it, almost always people respond to me this way. They don't say, I really want to get together. I just can't do one of those times. No, they come up with, I can't do either one of those times, but how about June 4th at 2 p.m.? They mirror your way of relating to them. And that's great leadership. And all throughout this, you're telling them, hey, I'm not going to bug you, but I am going to lead you. I'm going to make it easy for you to work with me. All you have to do is click on the phone button and say, yes, 1:30 on Tuesday works, or respond with a time of your own, making it as easy as I can to do that stuff. And then remember to follow up with a text and a call or an old-fashioned email, and I don't want to bother you. When we take that approach, we show our potential customers right out of the gate how well we're going to lead them and how little they will have to do to engage with us. Happy scheduling.
That wraps up another episode of the Get Off the Treadmill podcast. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button to ensure you are receiving the latest tools you need to grow your business and to get off the treadmill. If you want more information on the 3 to 5 Club, the Crankset Group, or to book Chuck as a business advisor, speaker, or workshop leader, you can contact us at grow@cranksetgroup.com. Until next time, have a great week.